They say grief hits you in waves, but that day, it felt more like an undertow. Silent, pulling, inescapable. I stood just outside the funeral home, the air heavy with perfume, condolences, and fake sympathy smiles. My mother's urn, delicate and beautiful, sat on the table inside, surrounded by lilies she never even liked. But I kept nodding and accepting the hugs, mostly out of autopilot and caffeine. She was gone. Actually gone. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And then I heard her. My sister, Danielle, dressed to the nines in designer black like it was a red carpet event, was laughing too loudly near the food table. It's going to be so hard now, she said to some wide-eyed distant cousin. You know, planning a wedding without Mom. She had such good taste. My hand clenched before I could think. Not because she mentioned Mom, but because of her tone. Like she was being inconvenienced. Like this funeral was a scheduling conflict. I tried to ignore it. Tried to focus on the memory table I had spent hours building, hoping someone, anyone, would stop and remember her for who she was. But of course, Danielle found me. "Hey," she said, slipping next to me in her trademark faux sympathetic voice. "Can I talk to you for a second? Privately?" I nodded, even though everything in me said I shouldn't. She led me to the hallway between the reception room and the staff kitchen, out of earshot, but still within range of the smell of baked ziti and over-perfumed relatives. Her tone shifted immediately. "So, listen," she began, folding her arms. "With everything going on, I think we should talk about the inheritance." I blinked. "Are you actually serious right now?" "I'm not trying to be insensitive," she said, fake hurt. "But obviously Mom would have wanted me to be taken care of. I mean, you know how important my wedding is to this family, and it's barely 4 months away." She stared at me, eyes wide as if expecting a hug instead of a reaction. I kept waiting for her to pull back the curtain and reveal it was some grief delusion joke. But no, she was serious. "I'm going to need about half," she continued. "For the venue, photography, you know, the necessary things. Honestly, it's not even that much when you consider how many people we're inviting." I felt my jaw lock. "Half of what Mom left behind?" "Well, yeah." She rolled her eyes slightly. "Don't make this difficult. It's not like you need it. You don't even want a wedding or kids. This is different. This is legacy." Her words sliced sharper than anything anyone else had said to me all day. Not because she wanted the money, but because she'd practiced this. She had that scripted tone, the one she used to get out of traffic tickets and into exclusive parties. I swallowed hard. "Mom's body hasn't even been buried yet," Danielle pouted, as if it was my timing that was off. "I'm grieving too," she said. "But Mom would want me to move forward with joy, right? You said that in your speech." I honestly couldn't breathe. It felt like she'd turned my eulogy into a line item. She reached out to touch my arm like she was comforting me. "Look, I don't want to make this uglier than it needs to be. The lawyer mentioned something about distributions happening soon. Just push it through. I'll take care of everything else." And just like that, she walked away, back to the crowd, smiling and waving like a debutante on parade, as if she hadn't just tried to hijack Mom's memory for table settings and imported orchids. I stood there, still, frozen. That was the moment I realized something. Danielle wasn't grieving. She was calculating, and no matter how deeply I loved my mother, I couldn't honor her properly until I protected what she left behind from her own daughter. Looking back, I don't know why I was surprised. The signs had always been there. Quiet, constant red flags I'd chosen to fold into napkins and ignore. Maybe it was guilt, maybe habit, or maybe I was just trained to believe Danielle needed more understanding than accountability. The first time I really started to question her was during the stretch of Mom's illness. Not the beginning, when doctor visits were sporadic and hope still lingered. No, it was when things got hard, when days blurred into medication lists, sponge baths, and swallowing down tears in silence. Danielle was always busy. Between wedding expos, networking brunches, and her influencer contracts, she just couldn't step away right now. Always just missed appointments. Always just missed the chemo days or the hours Mom spent trembling in the dark. But she always sent flowers, not to the hospital. To the house. Big, expensive arrangements with glittery cards. From your favorite daughter, one read once. I didn't show Mom that one. It was only in the final week, once the doctors whispered to me privately that we were running out of time, that Danielle showed up. Hair perfect. Nails manicured. Full makeup. She swept in like a tribute act rather than a daughter, and suddenly, ironically, she was everywhere. Holding Mom's hand when visitors came by. Snapping a photo of Mom's blanket-covered legs with the caption, "My heart is breaking." She showed up just in time to perform grief, without bothering to carry any of the weight. I remember one night I was spoon-feeding Mom pudding in the dim kitchen while Danielle sat on the couch watching reality TV reruns. She didn't even look up when she shouted, "Is she gonna finish that?" "I don't want to waste the chocolate." I didn't answer. I just walked upstairs. But Mom, always the soft one, always believing the best, would squeeze my hand and say, "Your sister's just wired different. She's flighty, sure, but her heart's not bad. She just needs more help." That line was her favorite excuse. For late bills, for irresponsible choices, for whole months without a call. She just needs more help. Help I could have handled. Manipulation I couldn't. The worst part? Danielle had a way of making everyone else feel like they were crazy for noticing. She'd stitch enough charm into every lie that people wanted to believe her. Even Mom, in the end, still defended her. She loved deeply. Mom once whispered after Danielle left early from hospice, because of a photo shoot emergency. Her eyes were glassy, distant. She wasn't good at showing it, but she loved me. I remember wrapping the blanket around Mom's feet that night, my chest heavy with something like grief. But it wasn't just about dying. It was about knowing this woman I adored would still be trying to protect, someone who wouldn't visit unless there were cameras or candles. She crafted her narrative while I lived in the mud of the truth, so no, I shouldn't have been surprised when Danielle asked for half of everything just hours after the funeral. I just pretended not to see all those years, that she was capable of it. But this time, I wasn't going to fold the red flag. End of section. Ready to continue. Say expand next section when ready. Danielle arrived to the reading of the will in a cream-colored wrap dress like she was headed to brunch, not a meeting about our mother's legacy. I wore black, still in mourning, barely holding myself together under the weight of reality, that Mom was really gone, and the only thing left was paperwork and what she'd trusted us to do with it. Our Mom's estate lawyer. Mr. Halburn was a quiet man in his early 60s, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much family drama drawn out in fine print. He'd worked with Mom for over a decade, trustworthy, kind, but practical. We sat in leather chairs across from him, her 2 children, the only heirs. Danielle scrolled through Instagram on her phone until he politely asked her to put it away. And even then, she made a show of sighing, like he'd interrupted something critical. "I'm ready for my portion," she said. No preamble, no hello. Mom said we'd split everything 50-50. Mr. Halburn's lips pressed into a thin line, and his fingers tapped twice on the manila folder before opening it. He glanced at me quickly. Not rudely, just carefully. Then cleared his throat. "Your mother updated the will 2 months before her passing," he said gently. "She specified in clear legal terms that the majority of her liquid assets be left to her eldest child." He looked at me. "And her physical property, notably the house, be jointly discussed at a later time." Danielle's jaw actually dropped. "Wait, what?" "That wasn't our agreement." Mr. Halburn remained calm, but his voice firmed slightly. "There was no formal agreement between your mother and yourself. If there was a verbal conversation, it unfortunately holds no legal weight unless properly documented." Danielle tossed her hair back. "No, okay, that's cute and all, but Mom told me she'd help with my wedding. She said she wanted part of her legacy to be joy, not just savings accounts." She turned to me, eyes wide like I was expected to step in and support her performance. I just sat still. I knew something strange had been going on with her confidence, that smug certainty she carried. But this wasn't gall anymore. It was delusion, and part of me started to wonder if she actually believed her own lies. She was adamant, Danielle continued, voice now slightly trembling, She said she wanted to help pay the deposit for the venue. That was the last time we spoke, and she promised. Mr. Halburn gently closed the folder and slid it aside. The room shifted. I normally wouldn't say this, he began, folding his hands. But given the level of emotion in the room, I feel I should mention something off record. We both looked at him. Your mother came into my office several times in her final months. More than usual, he explained. She had questions, concerns. She changed her main banking passwords, requested monitoring on her accounts. She seemed emotionally unsettled. Danielle's face froze, but I leaned in, confused. Unsettled how? She expressed worries that she was being taken advantage of, he said carefully. Or at the very least, emotionally pressured regarding her finances. She didn't name names, but she changed her estate plan because, in her words, too many people expect access to money they didn't earn. I blinked. I wasn't sure whether to feel gratitude or something worse, guilt that Mom had gone through that alone. Danielle scoffed. So you're saying my mother thought I was manipulating her? I'm not saying anything, he replied. But she did, in this document, in her own handwriting in the margin notes, which I'm happy to forward you copies of. Danielle didn't speak. She just stared at him. And that's when I noticed it. That flicker. That second where the armor cracked. For just a heartbeat, her confidence wavered. Like maybe she knew she was pushing too far. But didn't know how to stop. Like maybe she hadn't expected anyone to remember what Mom had actually said. Just the lies she could spin about how things were supposed to go. There was no bombshell. No table flip. Just paperwork. Words and wills and the quiet truth that Mom hadn't left her out because she didn't care. She'd done it because she finally saw her clearly. Is that all? Danielle asked finally, a bit too loud, her cheeks flushed red. For now, Mr. Halburn replied. She stood up before dismissal, muttering something about calling her fiancé and texting angrily as she walked out the door in her heels, leaving behind only the faint scent of expensive perfume and entitlement. And me, still sitting, still trying to absorb the weight of what I already knew deep down. That Mom hadn't been naive in the end. She saw what was happening, and quietly. She made sure I'd be protected. End of section. Ready to continue. Say expand next section when ready. It didn't take long after the will reading for Danielle to pivot from indignation to full-blown delusion. Within a week, her Instagram turned into a highlight reel of what looked like a celebrity event in the making. She started posting cryptic countdowns. Big day loading, a luxury bride, followed by reels of place settings, designer gown try-ons, and elaborate tasting menus. In one video, she clinked wine glasses with a private chef over an arugula lobster amuse-bouche, gushing, "Mom would have been obsessed with this pairing." I nearly dropped my phone when I saw that one. Not because the food looked expensive. I mean, it did. But because I knew exactly how much Danielle didn't have. Her bank account was chaos before Mom died. She was living off a roller coaster of credit, influencer collabs, and a lifestyle she couldn't actually afford. Mom had covered her rent twice last year, and now she was planning a $100K wedding? Where was this money coming from? From the outside, you'd think she was royalty. Imported table linens flown in from Milan. A dress shopping, trip in Milan, a rehearsal dinner booked at the same country club where our parents once save-stretched to host their 25th anniversary, and even then said it was too pricey. Danielle just called her venue exclusive but tasteful. She had no shame about it either. In fact, she made it look like the whole family was behind her, emotionally and financially. She guilt-tripped relatives constantly. Our Aunt Linda, who lives off Social Security, told me Danielle had called crying about how the wedding would be the only way she could feel something good after losing Mom. Aunt Linda mailed her a check for $250 my cousin Rachel got cornered at a family barbecue and asked if she could donate instead of buying a registry gift. She assumed it was for a charity when Danielle first pitched it. I started hearing murmurs from other people too, that she had told them Mom had set aside money for the wedding, that it was already hers, just held up in legal red tape, that I was the reason she hadn't received it yet. She was rewriting the whole story, sculpting herself as the struggling heiress, robbed of a dream by a selfish sibling. A curated victim narrative with excellent lighting, And yet, beneath all the glam and guilt, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling. This wedding was built on a pile of lies and unpaid invoices. Her posts were all blessed and grateful, but I knew Danielle better than anyone. When she bragged the loudest was when things were slipping out from under her. Just like when we were younger, and she insisted she wasn't failing geometry, even as she forged the grade reports. She didn't hide her mess, she buried it under sparkle, and now, she wasn't just skating on delusion, she was stitching Mom's memory into it, making her into a mascot for her bridal brand, as if Mom existed only to be the tear-jerking backstory in her luxury wedding package. It made my stomach turn. I hadn't even scattered Mom's ashes yet, and Danielle was already building a fantasy world where Mom approved of every imported flute glass and Swarovski crystal menu card. But even as I watched this unfold in real time, what I didn't understand yet, what hadn't clicked, was just how wide her net of deception had become. It wasn't just misleading family, she was lying directly to the man she was marrying, and when the house of cards finally fell, everyone would see it. End of section. Ready to continue. Say expand next section when ready. I was at a cousin's baby shower when I heard it. It wasn't even said maliciously. More like a casual comment, tossed mid-conversation while we folded onesies into pastel gift bags. I still can't believe your mom let Danielle use her Amex for all those wedding deposits, my cousin Leah said, tying a pale blue ribbon like it was nothing. Aunt Evelyn was so generous. My spine stiffened. What deposits? I asked calmly, or at least I thought I sounded calm. My heartbeat said otherwise. Leah blinked, surprised. Oh, just what Danielle told us back in January. You know, while your mom was still at home? I remember because she said she had to leave early for the cake tasting Mom paid for. Wait, she didn't tell you? The rest of her words blurred under a sickening buzz in my ears. That was a full month before Mom had stopped responding to our texts. Before the hospice nurse pulled me aside and told me she'd started barely recognizing time. Still, I nodded, made an excuse about grabbing another gift bag, and left before I threw up in the bathroom sink. That night, I logged into Mom's old online banking portal. I hadn't gone through it yet. Honestly, it felt invasive. A last slice of her life I wasn't ready to touch. But now I had to know. The moment I clicked into the card history from December through February, my chest caved in. There were charges from luxury bridal stores, reservation fees at venues that charged $1,000 just to schedule a tour, and a deposit from a 5-star catering company, over $4,000 in just 6 weeks, all listed under online payment or advance booking. I scrolled and scrolled, hoping maybe I had it wrong. Maybe Mom had offered. Maybe this wasn't proof of Danielle squeezing a dying woman dry. But then I saw lines of smaller purchases, Uber rides from Studio 29 Bridal, takeout meals ordered to Danielle's apartment, wine club deliveries labeled bridal tasting, bought under Mom's card 2 days after a major pain meds increase. Mom could barely speak at that point. That was when I knew. Danielle hadn't just waited around for an inheritance. She'd started cashing in early. And even worse, she'd done it quietly, with just enough subtlety to pass it off as what Mom wanted. A charge here, a deposit there. No big confrontation, just slow bleeding. I closed the laptop and sat there for a long time. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal. The knowledge that while I was slipping compression socks over Mom's swollen legs and brushing her hair strand by strand, my sister was logging into her credit card account and booking premium linen chair covers. She knew Mom wouldn't be lucid enough to notice, or strong enough to stop her. Or maybe she didn't think it mattered, because Mom wasn't going to be around to complain. Grief has many forms. That night, mine turned to rage. The list of lies wasn't just growing anymore. It had taken root. End of section. Ready to continue. Say expand next section when ready. I gave her the chance to tell the truth first. That was important to me, for reasons I can't even fully explain. Maybe I wanted to believe that deep down, somewhere inside the curated performances and conniving smile, my sister had a capacity for shame. I texted her and asked to meet. Just us. No dad, no fiancé, just 2 sisters. I thought if I cornered her in private, gave her space to explain before things got ugly, it might stop her from digging herself in any deeper. She showed up 20 minutes late, of course, wearing designer sunglasses and sipping something green out of a glass bottle shaped like a vase. "So, what's this little secret meeting about?" she asked, sliding into the booth across from me like we were planning a vacation, not about to unravel everything she'd built her wedding on. I didn't waste time. I saw the charges on Mom's card. That stopped her for half a second. She blinked, quickly, and then leaned back with a sigh so dramatic I almost laughed. "Oh my God. Are you actually stalking a dead woman's credit history now?" I stayed quiet. She huffed. "First of all," Mom offered. "Second, she would have wanted me to keep going with the wedding. It was her dream, too. She was on pain meds and barely functioning, Danielle." I snapped. "You were running up her card and making it sound like noble grief." Danielle's face changed. She didn't go quiet. She didn't apologize. She didn't even get angry. What she did was go full actress. Her body curled inward and her eyes instantly welled up. Then the tears came, perfectly timed like she'd trained for this her whole life. "Why are you doing this?" she choked out. "Why do you hate it when something good happens to me?" I sat there stunned. "What?" She pushed away her glass bottle like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "You always find a way to make me feel small. Even now, while I'm trying to plan the one beautiful thing in our lives since everything fell apart, you want to destroy that too?" "Destroy it?" I said. "This is about what you did to Mom." But she shook her head like I was the unstable one. "It's always competition with you. Always judgment. Just admit it. You can't stand that people love me." I should have walked out. I should have stood up and let her talk to air. But the worst wasn't even her spiral. It's what she did next. Later that night, I found out she'd told Dad about our meeting. Except according to her version, I'd ambushed her, screamed at her in public, accused her of stealing, and told her I hoped the wedding got canceled. I never said any of that. But I knew how Danielle worked. Tears first, lies second, and a carefully selected audience third. So when Dad called, his voice cold and clipped, it didn't surprise me nearly as much as it hurt. "She's grieving too," he said. "I don't know what's gotten into you. Dad, I don't want to hear it." That part stung. "You're making this worse for everyone." Even her fiancé, Mark, who I had always liked, always defended to family when they called him dull, started acting distant. A few days later, I got an accidental group text about finalizing the guest list. It was from Danielle. The message underneath said, "Still deciding whether she should come. Too unpredictable lately. Me, unpredictable." That was rich. Coming from the woman who cried on demand while charging $800 centerpieces to a dying parent's Amex. I didn't respond, and they didn't follow up. That week, I learned what it feels like to be on the wrong side of a family's favorite child. You don't get screamed at. You get erased. Quietly. Surgically. Smiled at in public. Cut out in private. But I also learned something else. Danielle knew she'd been caught. Otherwise, she would have denied, deflected, not performed. Her overreaction wasn't panic. It was strategy. Spin the story faster than the truth can spread. Which meant if I wanted justice, I couldn't reason with her. I had to outplay her. End of section. Ready to continue. Say expand next section when ready. It was a rainy Tuesday when I went back to the house. Mom's house. Our house, technically. But when I was inside, it felt like hers. In the way gravity always feels like the earth is choosing to hold you down, not just doing it by default. The air still smelled faintly of her lavender oil and lemon furniture polish, even though she'd been gone almost 2 months. I wasn't there for anything intentional. Dad had asked if I could help him clear out some of the attic boxes so the movers could come next week. So I said yes, partially to be useful, partially because I hoped I could smell her one more time, maybe touch something she once held, something real, unfiltered by the fog of grief and fights over money. Up in the attic, it was just me. Dust motes floating like ghosts, cardboard half collapsing from humidity, insulation sticking out from the walls like pink spider webs. I wasn't looking for anything. I hadn't expected anything. But then I saw it. A file box. Small. Old. with Mom's handwriting on the lid in faded black. Sharpie. Personal, do not. Discard. Something in my chest whispered, this matters. I carried it down to her old bedroom and sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor like I used to as a kid when I'd hide from thunderstorms. The box made a soft thunk when I opened it. Inside were dozens of envelopes, handwritten notes, old paper clippings, and directly on top, tucked into a large manila folder, was a printed spreadsheet labeled Danielle Wedding Worksheet, Final. My mouth went dry. Flipping through it, I saw payment calculations, vendor quotes, and dish selections for a 6-course reception dinner I recognized from Danielle's bridal posts online. And over again, highlighted in yellow, were the same 2 initials for who's paying, M. Evelyn Moore. My mom. She had started funding it, slowly, quietly, $500 here, $700 there. Little installments not dramatic enough to trip the bank alarms or set off concern, just enough to give Danielle momentum, just enough to make herself feel good about supporting her daughter's dream. But then the payments stopped. Halfway down the list, there were pink post-it notes from Mom herself, scribbled in her tight looping cursive. One said, "Take off the imported champagne. She said she canceled this weeks ago." Another read, "Why is she asking me to pay for this again? I already Venmo'd her last month." And then, my stomach dropped. A yellow sticky note stuck to the back of the planner with 5 words, underlined twice. "If she uses me, she'll lose me." I froze. That was Mom's voice, not the softer one she used at dinner, or the apologetic tone she reserved for Danielle's tantrums. This was the voice that only came out when she truly meant something. For so long, I believed Mom made excuses for Danielle because she didn't see what was happening. But now it was clear. She did see it, and it broke her. I kept digging. Found printed emails from vendors confirming late cancellations, one even referencing a sudden change in funds from client's guardian. There was a letter dated just a few weeks before she passed, in which Mom had written a no-nonsense request to her lawyer about updating the estate allocations. "I want to prioritize what leaves lasting good," she wrote plainly. She never once named Danielle, but she didn't have to. It was in the tone, the pullback, the exhaustion. I sat there for an hour, reading through every line, until my eyes burned. This box wasn't just a file folder. It was a roadmap of a mother waking up, realizing too late that love wasn't enough to change someone who only saw her as a resource, not a person. Mom had tried. She really had. But in the end, she chose quiet boundaries over continued betrayal. And somehow, she left that choice behind for me to find, like a breadcrumb trail leading out of the maze Danielle built. Closing the lid gently, I whispered, "I get it now, Mom." She had given Danielle a chance. But unlike me, she wasn't going to let her daughter walk all over her memory, and neither was I. End of section. Ready to continue. Say expand next section when ready. After I found Mom's handwritten notes, I couldn't stop myself from digging deeper. Grief blurred into obsession. I had to know it all now. Not just the surface lies, but the story underneath. The rot beneath the roses. So I charged up Mom's old phone, half of me hoping it was wiped, the other half desperate for answers. It wasn't locked, just her usual simple 4-number passcode. Like she never expected anyone would need to protect her from her own child. The messages were still there. I didn't have to search long to find Danielle's name. Hundreds of texts, some dating months before Mom's final hospital stay. I read every word like I had never known my sister at all. Just a small favor, I swear. It's not that much. You don't want your only daughter walking down the aisle in a cheap dress, right? Other moms are doing way more. I don't want to be embarrassed. So you're saying I'm not worth a little joy? You literally gave my brother everything. It was nauseating. One message even ended with, "It won't matter once you're gone anyway." That one took the breath right out of me. This wasn't a daughter making wedding plans while her mother was sick. This was someone systematically wearing her down, drip by drip, until she said yes just to keep the peace. And maybe she did say yes, at first. Maybe she gave a little, trusting Danielle would be responsible. But everything I found made it clear. Danielle didn't have a budget. She had a wish list wrapped in entitlement, bankrolled by borrowed time. The receipts Mom had printed only covered a fraction of what I knew Danielle was now using. She hadn't planned a single expense around what she could actually afford, only what she'd expected to extract through charm, pressure, and guilt. And when that didn't work fast enough, she started inventing, falsifying documents, sending edited estimates, hiding exact numbers so Mom wouldn't catch on too quickly. She was building a $100,000 dream wedding on sand, expecting the inheritance, or what she assumed was her rightful half, to cover the rest, before the ground collapsed. But she never expected Mom would change the will. She never expected that someone might notice, and now, with the texts, notebook, and bank statements, I had the full picture. In Danny's own words, in Mom's heartbreak, in undeniable ink, my sister didn't just lie. She manipulated a dying woman into funding a fantasy she couldn't afford and didn't deserve. And now she was waltzing around like some grief-branded influencer while gaslighting me. Gaslighting everyone. It wasn't even about the wedding anymore. It was about what she was willing to bury with Mom, just to get what she thought she was owed. Not love, not memories, just leverage, and I was done letting her use it. End of section. Ready to continue. Say expand next section when ready. The invitation showed up 2 weeks before the wedding. Not through a phone call or text, but delivered to my apartment like I was some D-list guest at a gala I never asked to attend. Thick envelope, gold foil, my name misspelled. Inside was a beautifully printed card for the rehearsal dinner at the country club, complete with a curated menu and faux grateful wording. At the bottom, like it was an afterthought, she'd handwritten a note. Optional attendance. Wouldn't want to make you uncomfortable. I stared at those words for a long time. The fake sweetness, the arrogance wrapped in kindness, the gall of still sending an invite like everything was fine, like I should be grateful to be casually, conditionally included in the show. My stomach dropped. And then something clicked. This was never about inclusion. It was about control. The whole wedding was her final act, a stage glittering with curated lies and unearned sympathy. And this dinner? This was the dress rehearsal. Not just for vows, but for impression management. The last chance to solidify her image in front of the right audience. Dad's business contacts, Mom's old friends, Mark's wealthier relatives, and whatever influencers she managed to get to RSVP, and she thought I'd either stay silent or stay away. That was her mistake. I RSVP'd yes the next day, but not to fake a smile or be the bigger person. I was walking into that room with every screenshot, every receipt, every text, because if she wanted a spotlight so badly, I was going to help her earn it. In the days leading up to the dinner, I organized everything. I had the printed bank statements showing the charges on Mom's card, the timeline of DJ deposits and linen rentals paid before Mom was even conscious, the notebook copies with Mom's own handwriting, and just in case, the letter Mom had written but never sent. It wasn't about revenge. It was about correction. If Danielle wanted the whole world to believe she was the wounded bride carrying on through grief, then she could answer for the fact that her grief came with designer heels, fake invoices, and pressure tactics aimed at a mother in hospice care. The rehearsal dinner was held in the chandelier-lit ballroom of the country club. Ice sculptures, signature cocktails named after the couple, waitstaff in white gloves, the works. Everything gleamed. Everything sparkled, and Danielle, she glided into the room like a queen, all teeth and performative laughter, trailing designer tulle behind her like she was already living inside a magazine spread. When she spotted me across the room, her smile froze. For the first time. So did she. End of section. Ready to continue. Say, expand next section when ready. Dinner was halfway through when I realized I didn't even taste what I was eating. My plate sat mostly untouched while polite applause and rehearsed toasts passed around the room like a bowl of stale croutons. Her fiancé's best man made a joke about Danielle always getting her way, and everyone laughed like it wasn't foreshadowing. Danielle sat at the head table like royalty, face glowing under candlelight, nodding along as if she genuinely believed all this glitter was her birthright. Occasionally, her eyes flicked toward me, a silent warning, cool and surgical. Stay in your lane. She had no idea there was nothing left to lose. The final toast was supposed to go to my father. He stood, trembling only slightly, and raised his glass, saying something shallow about love, family legacy, and how proud your mother would be. He looked at Danielle, who beamed back. It was a lie, and we both knew it. He just didn't know how much of a lie it was. I waited for the applause. I waited until the clinking of forks softened and the spotlight wandered off. Then I stood up, quietly, calmly, and said, "Before dessert is served, I'd like to say something." Danielle's smile faltered like someone cut her music mid-chorus. I heard her trade a look with Mark, her fiancé, who gave her a gentle squeeze under the table. I didn't raise my voice. "I wasn't planning to speak tonight," I started. "In fact, I wasn't even sure I'd come. But I've realized something over the past few months. Something I think Mom would have wanted said out loud." All eyes slowly turned to me. Napkins dropped. Glasses paused mid-air. "She believed in love," I continued. "In legacy, in trust. But she also believed in the truth. Especially when people tried to hide behind grief and gold filters." Still, my voice stayed calm, but I could feel the undercurrent tighten. Danielle shifted in her chair. A flick of hair, a twitch of her perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "I know many of you have heard stories," I said, "that Mom set money aside for the wedding, that there was confusion about the inheritance, that things were promised." Gentle murmurs began. A few people leaned in. "I heard those stories too," I said. "But unlike everyone else, I wasn't satisfied with passive answers or picture-perfect captions. So I checked the bank statements." Danielle's fork fell. It made the smallest clink on her plate. But to me it echoed like a bell. Charges on Mom's credit card. Weeks before she passed. Bridal deposits. Wine subscriptions. Venue tours. Even a dress. All made while she was barely able to sit upright. Someone audibly gasped. I heard the vendors whispering behind their chafing dishes. A cousin turned in her chair and glanced at Danielle, confused. Danielle opened her mouth, but I beat her to it. "I also found her wedding planning notebook," I said, pulling a folded printout from my jacket. Notes in her handwriting, real ones. Ones where she starts tracking receipts, questioning numbers, even writing, "Why lie?" Her fiancé looked at me then. Really looked at me for the first time all night. Like something cracked open behind his eyes. "Oh, and this," I added, pulling out my phone. A voicemail. 2 months before she died, Danielle stood. "That's enough," but I held up a finger. It was quiet. The room went completely still. And then, Mom's tired voice crackled gently from the speaker. "I don't think I can trust her anymore. I gave enough. She doesn't ask. She demands. And I'm still alive. I haven't disappeared. She keeps acting like I'm already gone. And finally, don't let her rewrite this when I'm not here." Mark stood, slowly. Danielle looked like she couldn't breathe. "Turn that off," she snapped, stepping out from behind the table and trying to reach for my phone. But I stepped back. Everyone's heard enough. No one clapped. No one said a word. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't messy. It was just still. The kind of still that only truth can leave behind once it's been buried for too long and finally pulled into the light. Danielle stood in the center of a room she curated for her image, surrounded by the very people she manipulated. And there was nothing she could say to unsay the evidence. I watched Mark. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just looked at her like he was seeing someone else entirely, like he wasn't standing next to a fiancé anymore, but a stranger wearing her skin. "I think we need to talk," he said quietly to her. Then he walked out, right past the ice sculpture of their initials. She didn't follow. Not right away. Danielle just stood there, lipstick smudged, frozen like her entire fairy tale had just shattered at her feet. And I sat back down, because the truth had already done the talking. Silence didn't come right away. First there was just air. Thick, stifling electric air. The kind that hangs in a room when someone's worst secret has just stepped out fully dressed. And then came the scream. A high-pitched, guttural thing, raw and cracked like it ripped straight out of her throat without consent. "That's not true!" Everyone flinched. Some even gasped. My sister's voice echoed off the walls like glass shattering in all directions. She glared at me with wild, furious eyes, red spreading across her face. "You're lying. This is all lies. You're just bitter. You've always been bitter." No one said a word. Not Dad, not Mom, not even her fiancé, who stood there as if the entire room had tilted sideways, and he wasn't sure which way to fall. "You're disgusting for doing this at my engagement dinner," she shrieked as if decibels could fix the truth. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. I had brought proof. The screenshots. The messages. The fake rumors she planted. Her entire sick little game unzipped and laid at everyone's feet. And now her scream was the exclamation point on it all. Her eyes flicked around the table, searching, expecting someone to rise and defend her, to nod and help her accuse me of lying. Again, but no one moved. Even our mother, who once blamed my tears on hormones and insisted I apologize when my sister mocked me at that Christmas party, sat frozen, her wineglass untouched, her mouth a tight, bitter line. That silence broke something in my sister. Like a switch flipped, she grabbed her purse off the back of the chair and spun toward the exit. One heel clacked too loudly. Then she tripped slightly, just enough to dent her dignity, before she stormed out of the restaurant, her hair flying behind her like smoke, and like some warped aftershow, the entire table just sat there, blinking. Her fiancé followed seconds later, but not in a rush. He stood slowly, eyes scanning the table with the quiet shame of someone who just watched the mask fall off. He walked outside without looking at me, but the way his shoulders slumped said more than words ever could. That's when the final twist hit, and it hit differently. His mother, elegant, stone-faced, guarded the whole night, rose. Everyone watched her. She walked straight to me, her heels landing evenly, deliberately, like she hadn't just watched her future daughter-in-law lose her mind. She put her hand gently on my arm and leaned in close, her voice even and sincere. "Thank you," she said, "for showing us who she really is." Then she turned and walked back to her seat. Just like that, and that's when I knew I wasn't the villain in this story. I wasn't the jealous sister, or the troubled one who just wanted attention. For the first time in years, someone in that family saw me clearly, without distortion, without manipulation, without apology. The silence that followed didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt clean, like the truth had finally cut through years of noise. Like maybe, finally, I'd been heard, and I wasn't going to chase after anyone ever again. 3 days. That's how long it took for everything my sister built to unravel. The wedding was canceled. Just like that. No official statement, no announcement. Just silence. She went completely off the grid, refusing to talk to anyone. Then slowly, like dirt being kicked into the wind, vague Instagram posts started appearing. Blurry sunset photos, cryptic captions like, "People always show their true colors." Eventually, and loyalty is earned, not inherited. She didn't tag anyone. She didn't have to. Everyone knew. They called off the vendors next. Florist, caterers, venue. Some of them posted openings, quiet confirmation that the biggest wedding in town was off the books. Word spread quickly, the way it always does when scandal clings to it. Some people acted surprised. Most people had seen the cracks. They just hadn't expected the whole wall to fall. I didn't reach out. I didn't comment, repost, like, or lurk. I had nothing left to say, but the world, it kept talking. Turns out, when one person's lies come to light, others start looking for their own. Friends she manipulated in college shared old screenshots. Someone reposted her fake GoFundMe story from 2 years ago, the one she claimed was for a friend with cancer. The friend commented, "It wasn't me." The internet did what it does best: connect dots, fast. The fallout was silent but brutal. Then one afternoon, Dad called. No small talk this time. No awkward pause. Just this soft, tired voice. He said, "I didn't know the half of it, and I'm sorry." I stood in my kitchen and didn't say anything for a long moment, because hearing your father admit he was wrong, genuinely wrong, after years of siding with someone who played you like a puppet, it hits a nerve deep, where sadness and hope live side by side, never sure who's going to win. He told me he'd canceled his golf membership dinner that week. Said he couldn't face those people without thinking of that scene in the restaurant. Said something changed in him when he watched my sister scream, unprovoked, in front of everyone, then run like none of them mattered. Maybe it made her flaws too big to deny, or maybe for the first time his silence felt like cowardice. We ended the call even. Not fixed, not healed, but level, which in our family is a miracle. Mom didn't reach out. Not then, not for a while. She stayed loyal to the wrong version of us, the polished one, the polite one. Her silence said everything. She wasn't ready to choose truth over image. But honestly, I didn't expect her to. Everything else began to shift, slowly, quietly. My brother, who'd always stayed out of it, texted an old photo of us when we were kids. Just found this cleaning. Next week, an aunt I hadn't seen in 2 years invited me to brunch. It wasn't a parade. It wasn't applause. It was something softer, safer, a slow turning of heads at last, in my direction. The house of cards had fallen. Not because I blew on it, but because it was never built for storm weather in the first place. And this time, I didn't have to hold the wreckage. I could just walk away from it. Free.